Hello, I am Bella Simone, and this is the AMS show. Today, our guest is Jason Thomas, the assistant principal of the Aspen Middle School. Welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for being on the AMS show.
Hello, Bella. How are you? And thank you very much for having me on your show.
I'm good.
It is fantastic to see you. And of course, like every day, whenever you come into the building, I love seeing all the different kinds of hats that you wear. So thank you.
I understand this is your first year with the Aspen Middle School.
It
How's
is
it been
my
going
first year.
for you?
It's been going really well. Thank you for asking. I love the kids. Kids are fantastic. The staff is wonderful. I'm just so eager and happy to be around such a professional group of people. And obviously the community is wonderful as well. I work with a great leader. I'm just excited to be here and happy to be in an environment where people are very supportive and proactive and very progressive as well.
You said they're professional here. So have you been at schools where the adults are like kids?
I didn't say that some of our teachers aren't a little bit like kids on occasion, because how else do we do it? But the truth is, I just feel like there are environments where you have very, very bright people. You're surrounded by bright people who do a really good job, and I feel that every day that I come into the building at AMS.
Where did you live and teach before you teach here?
That's a great question. I've been all over the place. I've been a bit of a nomad for many years. Do you want the short version or a little bit of the longer version?
Long.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. I started off right out of college. I moved to Telluride, Colorado, and I lived there for a couple of years, and I eventually moved to Silverton, Colorado, where I lived for about 7 years. It was before the ski area, before it got big and popular in the wintertime. But eventually, I did move to Breckenridge, Colorado, and I started working at Frisco Elementary School. And that's where I got exposed to teaching and learning and English language acquisition, all of those pieces. And I got very excited about it. Project-based learning was a big part of that. Eventually, I left Frisco and Breckenridge, moved back to Silverton, K-12 school, 125 kids, expeditionary learning model, which I absolutely loved. It was a wonderful programming model.
That's small compared to our school.
It's very small.
5 kids, we got like 500 in our whole school, in our whole middle school.
I know, it's a tiny, tiny school.
500 total.
I know, it's a tiny school. Our graduating class was something like 3 or 4, somewhere along those lines. So we actually had, inside the one building, we had an elementary school in the building, a middle school, and a high school in the one building, and it was all multi-age. So it was very, very different from what we see here at Aspen School District. Once I left Silverton, I decided to go to Turkey and work for a while. So I spent a little bit of time there working. It was a pretty big school, but it was a small foundation where I worked, and I also worked for the Ministry of Education. Came back, worked in Denver for a little bit, working with superintendents of schools, had 17 schools that I worked with, and had to get out of the city, and that's how I landed here in Aspen.
Oh, wow, Turkey, that's far.
It's a long way away, very, very different culture, but a wonderful, beautiful place. And I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to go, you will never regret it.
Why were you interested in working in Aspen?
I was interested in working in Aspen. I would say that the main reason I wanted to work in Aspen was that I was looking for a smaller community. I was looking for a mountain community, below 9,000 feet, I might add. And so I kind of started looking around. I was looking at Telluride, Steamboat, Aspen, interviewed a couple different places. And Craig Rogers called me. And when he did call, I responded and I said, sure, I'm going to be on the tail end of a break. I'll come in and interview, and learned a little bit about the school and was just impressed all the way through. Thought it was fantastic. I loved the programming model. I loved the outdoor ed component. And it was a no-brainer. I thought it was going to be great.
So were you guys friends before?
No, I had never met Craig, although I feel like we're friends now. I had never met him before. My first interview was a Skype interview. And I think John Malloy was there, Craig Rogers was there, and a number of the leadership team was also there. And got a chance to, very quickly meet a few people that way. And then I came in for my next interview when I got hired.
How did you become an educator?
So that was something that was not intentional in the beginning. I ended up visiting some friends in Breckenridge, and we were out mountain biking, and my friend's husband said, oh, you should definitely look into the middle school. We're looking for someone who speaks Spanish and understand Spanish really well and can help translate, so forth. And I got involved with the middle school, became a heritage language teacher, which is teaching Spanish to native Spanish speakers. So trying to improve their literacy a little bit. It was a little bit odd. It was a little bit strange, but it was a fun thing to do. And I also taught English language acquisition. So within that, I did a lot of social studies and science and literacy. Not as much mathematics, but did a lot of the core content areas for English language learners.
So you went from a guy who like mountain bikes a lot, hikes a lot, to principal, and you still do all that stuff.
I try to.
That's pretty impressive.
I try to. You know, sometimes our schedules are a little tough, but I do try to get out. You know, fortunately here, we have everything right at our fingertips, so it makes it a little bit easier. When I lived in places like Istanbul or in Denver, as you know, it's a little bit harder to find a good trail to get to.
Yeah. What's your background in education?
So when I started working at Aspen at Frisco Middle School, when I started working there, it was an IB program. And so that was where I first got involved with it. The next thing that I started to do was take on these project-based learning types of approaches. So my class developed a project where we made interpretive signs all along the urban bike path right there along Lake Dillon. So if you ever go there, you'll see a lot of the interpretive signs of different types of animals that live in that area. Birds, beavers, frogs, the whole bit. And so that really was like a catalyst for me to learn about project-based learning. And then when I moved to Silverton, the Expeditionary Learning School, that was like, oh, this is incredible. I love this. This is what I want to do. And so EL is really where my passion is long duration projects over 3-4 months sometimes. Where they have a product at the very end, which is like a culminating product. It's a synthesis of all their learning.
Are those signs you made still there?
They are. They are. Not the ones that the kids actually drew, but an interpretation of those signs. Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge being the principal of Aspen Middle School, vice principal of Aspen Middle School?
Well, I think what I'll do is I'll start with the things that I love the most. And I think what I like the most is spending time with kids, getting into classrooms, watching the learning take place, see how the learning is happening, learn all about what they are learning about, and have conversations with students about what they're doing. That's my favorite part of the day. What makes that challenging is sometimes we have to work with kids in the office, find out what's going on, some struggles they might be having, or how we can make things better for them and adjust to their needs. Having parents come in and visit us, it also takes a lot of time in working with students. So what we like to do is definitely meet with parents to make sure that they feel that their voices are heard. But our goal really is to be in classrooms and spend time with kids. So time management is my biggest struggle.
What's your approach to education?
My philosophy, I think we kind of touched on that a little bit, is some of that longer term project-based learning. I really like the idea of students finding a topic that's compelling and it's authentic. It could be something around the community. It could be something that is around service learning. Doesn't really matter as long as it's compelling and engaging for students. They build a little bit of background knowledge. They dive deeply into the content and learn a lot about it. They go on field work and they take notes. Experts come in from the community to help share with everybody what they've learned. And then you guys take all that information, you bring it together, and you have a final product. And part of that is the beauty of making this final product where your learning comes to life in something that you create. And to me, that's a beautiful philosophy, and it really comes from expeditionary learning.
How do you connect with the kids?
Connecting with kids is generally difficult because we're not teachers, and teachers always have the best relationships with kids, and I get a little jealous sometimes. But what I try to do, like I said, is come in and talk with kids in the classroom. I get a chance to have interviews with wonderful students, perhaps on television on occasion, and so that helps me connect with kids. But being out on the turf, we've arranged our duties so that we have duty on the blacktop or the turf every day except for Wednesday, and just having conversations, maybe throwing a football with kids, connecting with kids. That's one of the ways that I do it, some of the ways that I do that.
Who are the other administrators you work with?
So I work directly with Craig Rogers, and he is the leader of our building, the lead principal, and he's a fantastic guy, great leader, has a very good outlook on what we're looking for students. He really believes in building rapport with students, and so I'm enjoying that. And I also work with a lot of other principals that are in the other schools on occasion, and occasionally I work with Tom and John Malloy. Tom Heald and John Malloy over at the district office, and get a chance to meet occasionally. But most of my time is spent with Craig, and we work on trying to help our school improve what we're doing.
Do you have any goals for this year?
Yes, I do have some goals for this year. What would life be without goals? For me, my first year here, I want to get to know kids and I want to get to know teachers. It's important for me to visit with teachers and spend time with teachers and build relationships with teachers. And I know that there are other pressing concerns that we have that we're working on, but for me, personally and as a professional, when I first come into a school, I want to get to know folks because I want to find out how they work, how they operate, how you work, how you operate, and be able to support in any way that I can.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I understand that you have gone to several district outdoor education trips. What do you think of the program?
So the outdoor ed program for me is something that is it's tremendous. It's an amazing experience. And actually, I've only been on the one. I went on 8th grade outdoor ed, although I am scheduled to be on several others coming up here pretty soon with 6th grade and 7th grade. The 8th grade trip that I had a chance to experience was an amazing bonding experience, not only for me and the kids, but for kids between themselves. Team building, working together, going through rough challenges. There was tons of laughter, there were tears. We had opportunities for them to challenge themselves in anything that they were doing, and they were able to overcome some of those challenges. So for me, outdoor ed is a very, very important part of an experience that all students should really have. And I'm hoping that we have some way to build in a little bit more to that someday.
Are you a skier?
Am I a skier? I do ski. I used to snowboard at one point in my life, but I found that I enjoyed skiing a little bit more. I managed to get down the mountain. It's probably not the prettiest thing, but I do manage to get down. And I'm much more comfortable on a mountain bike than I am on skis. But I do love skiing, and I'm very excited about getting my pass and going to play in the snow sometime soon.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
I think one of the things that I'm just so impressed with Aspen Middle School, but really the community, is in the incredible support and the generosity and the authenticity of the people that live here. Just thinking about outdoor ed alone, we had 100 volunteers that showed up for that and helped it become a reality. And that to me is just absolutely amazing. The other thing that I think I'd really like to reiterate is the amazing staff that I work with at the middle school, how amazing they are in terms of their dedication to their craft as a teacher, but also just thinking about how professional they are and how much time they want to spend with kids to make sure that education happens and we have the highest quality first instruction.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Again, I am Bella Simone, and you have been watching the AMS show.
Thank you, Bella. Great to be here. Take care.